Hey guys, TrainerDC here, coming at you with another video. By far the biggest surprise from the Pokemon Day announcement of Winds and Waves was the release date for the game. I think everyone was expecting that Pokemon Winds and Waves would come out this fall in 2026, and when they put 2027 up on screen, that was a major shock. And I've seen mixed reception to this online. I've seen some people happy that they're going to give this game more time to develop, but I've seen a lot of disappointment online as well that these games aren't coming this year, and I would fall into the latter camp. And we'll get into the release date and when exactly it's going to come out at some point in the future. But really what I wanted to talk about today is how exactly does this affect Pokemon's roadmap going forward? If you guys don't know, Pokemon's roadmap leaked within the most recent batch of Terra Leak information that got dumped online. I'll leave a card up above to that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. But nevertheless, when the roadmap leaked, it said that Pokemon Winds and Waves Project Gaia was going to come out in 2026. The DLC for Winds and Waves was going to come out in 2027. Then Project Ringo, which was going to be Pokemon Legends Galar, was going to come out in 2027 or later. With Project Seed, our MMO game, our multi-region remake taking place in Kanto, Johto, Sinnoh, Hoenn, and Kitakami was going to come out in 2028 or later, and then Generation 11 was going to top things off in 2030. Now, the thing with roadmaps is obviously they are subject to change. This is just their general outline for how they see the next half decade of the franchise shaping out. And obviously we've seen already that they've broken from that roadmap because Pokemon Winds and Waves is now coming out in 2027. So my question today is, how does this affect the roadmap going forward? If Winds and Waves is coming out in 2027, and for argument's sake of this video, let's just say that Pokemon Legends Galar hasn't been canceled because we don't know that to be a fact, but given that Project Karasu is now going to be the next mainline Pokemon game, it most likely has been. Again, card above to that video if you don't know what I'm talking about with Project Karasu. It's a rather fascinating detail that leaked out there right before Pokemon Day. But nevertheless, for argument's sake, let's just say that Project Ringo is still happening. How exactly is this timeline going to shape up? In 2027, we're getting Winds and Waves. Does that mean we're also going to get the DLC for Winds and Waves in 2027? Does that mean the DLC for Winds and Waves gets shifted to 2028? Does that mean that Legends Galar is going to come out in 2027 still, and we're going to get Winds and Waves in the beginning of 2027 and Legends Galar at the end of 2027? Does that mean that Legends Galar got shifted to 2028? The MMO multi-region games got shifted to 2029 and then Gen 11 stays in 2030? Or does that mean that Gen 11 gets shifted into 2031 or even 2032? This is something that is rather fascinating to keep our eyes on, and I really don't know how this is going to shape up. On my live stream on Pokemon Day, I had my friends Dom and Sean join me to discuss Pokemon Winds and Waves and the other announcements that we got, and we actually got into this topic towards the latter part of the stream, which made me want to talk about this in a full video. Sean was saying to me that he believes that we're probably going to see Gen 11 get pushed back to either 2031 or 2032, and I would be quite frankly stunned if it got pushed back to 2032, but I could very easily see it getting pushed back to 2031, but I could also see it still coming out in 2030, because the thing is here regarding Pokemon is I feel like right now they're really in a time with the Switch era where they're trying to figure things out. Like, have you ever had a point in your life where you're like, where you don't really know what you're doing and you're kind of just trying to figure things out and you're kind of experimenting with different things? Maybe you take a misstep here, a misstep there. I kind of feel like that's what happened with Game Freak and Pokemon during the Switch era. Like, they started out with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which I would say outside of the catching mechanic and them being a different take on Pokemon were not bad games. They weren't that poorly received. Then Pokemon Sword and Shield come out and they were just like these games that were first of all rushed out and really just felt like an extension of a 3DS game on a home console. Like, they did not feel like home console releases. They didn't feel like they were fully fleshed out. So Game Freak basically took that criticism and they took that feedback and they said, okay, you guys really like the wild area in Pokemon Sword and Shield. We're going to make the next Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet, the next mainline games, or the next generation, I should say. We're going to make the entire game into a wild area. Obviously, before Scarlet and Violet came out, we had Legends Arceus and we had Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But for argument's sake, let's just focus on the main generation generations here. So we go to Scarlet and Violet, right? Scarlet and Violet are these open world Pokemon games that everyone's been asking for since they were a kid. They come out and they have massive performance problems, and visually they don't look great, right? Basically, Pokemon's like, oh, but we did what you wanted. We made this, Pokemon game that's open world. This is what you guys have been wanting, and we put it on the Nintendo Switch. What's the problem? Well, the problem is you guys rushed it out again, and it has a ton of performance problems, and it doesn't really look visually appealing. Like, you look at Scarlet and Violet compared to Winds and Waves, and which game looks more visually appealing? Winds and Waves. Obviously, it's had more time to develop than Scarlet and Violet had. So I think what has happened here with the Switch era of Pokemon is basically they're trying things out, and they didn't really know what they were doing with a home console Pokemon game. At first, Sword and Shield was kind of an extension of the 3DS Pokemon games, the linear routes that weren't exactly, the most expansive. People were critical of that, so they said, okay, we're going to give you a fully open world Pokemon game in Scarlet and Violet. That comes out, and people are critical over the fact that visually it does not look good. And secondly, performance-wise, this game does not perform well. It has a lot of frame issues and a lot of gameplay problems. So then they're like, okay, we hear you. We're going to fix all of this with Winds and Waves, and because of that, we saw this extended development period for Winds and Waves. It's going to have a 5-year gap between Generation 9 and Generation 10, which is unheard of within the Pokemon franchise. What I'm trying to get at here is I think they spent these 5 years trying to figure out how to make Pokemon work on the Switch too, how to make it visually appealing and hopefully, fingers crossed, not have performance issues like Scarlet and Violet had. So I think that while they took these 5 years to figure this out, while they took these 5 years to get Winds and Waves to look the way they do and polish those games, I don't necessarily think that it's going to then take them 5 years to make Gen 11, and the reason I say that is because now they've figured it out. Once you figure things out, it becomes easier for you to do the second time around. They got all of these assets in place, and we know that Pokemon loves to reuse their assets. I mean, look at the rival character from Sun and Moon versus the rival from Sword and Shield. They have the same animations. We've seen very similar animations throughout all of Pokemon. They don't like to mix things up all that much. They like to reuse assets. So what I'm getting at here is when Gen 11 comes out, they set a lot of the groundwork for Gen 11 with the production for Winds and Waves. So therefore, I think the development time of Generation 11 is going to be less than what Winds and Waves was. It's not going to be another 5-year development. I mean, I could be wrong. It could be, and we're not going to see Gen 11 till 2032. But if I had to put money on it, I think they're either sticking to that 2030 release window, or they're going to release Gen 11 in 2031, a year later. And if that is indeed the case, the one thing I'm begging the Pokemon Company to do is to make more Ilka-styled remakes to fill the gap years. I mean, there is no reason that we should be having a gap year in 2024 and another gap year in 2026. That's kind of crazy to me. If you look at the decade of Pokemon from 2010 to 2020, we had one gap year in 2015. If you look at the decade of Pokemon from 2020 to 2027, we're not even at the full end of the decade yet. We've had 2 gap years already. And look, I understand that game development is hard. I understand it's not as easy to develop a Switch game than a 3DS game. But at the end of the day, you founded Pokemon Works to help with problems like this. They developed Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, or Ilka did, I should say, which is now Pokemon Works is a part of Ilka. But they developed Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl as a way to hold us off until we got Legends Arceus in January. They're developing Pokemon Champions now. Use that company to your advantage. Use them so these gap years don't happen, because personally, I love Pokemon. I love having a game to look forward to every year. I understand that it is not feasible for Game Freak to do that. They cannot be releasing a Pokemon game every year anymore. It's just not going to happen. Look at what's happened when they were doing that. We got Pokemon Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. There is a way to work around that, and that is by having other studios come in to remake some older games. I mean, even Atlas is doing this. Studio P with Persona 4. Persona 4 Rerun is being developed by an external studio while Atlas is developing Persona 6. This is something that is common within the gaming industry, to outsource some of your remakes. Heck, Nintendo does this all the time. They had Greco make a bunch of those 3DS Zelda remakes. Why can't they do the same thing with Pokemon with another studio? So nevertheless, really, I feel like the roadmap right now is up in the air. Your guess is as good as mine as to what's going to happen over the next 5 years, because look, Legends ZA was initially supposed to come out in 2024. Gen 10 was supposed to be 2025. Legends ZA got pushed back to 2025. Gen 10 gets pushed back to 2026, then 2027. So who knows what's going to happen from here on out, but I just hope that they figure things out, because I feel like, again, the Switch era of Pokemon was Game Freak and the Pokemon Company figuring things things out. And now it seems like with Pokemon Winds and Waves, they figured things out. Again, they founded Pokemon Works to help along with development, to help with these gap years, hopefully. And hopefully down the line, we see that, hey, we're not going to have another gap year over the next decade, because when Gen 11 needs an extra year to cook in the oven, we're going to get an Ilka-styled X and Y remake to hold us over until Gen 11 comes out. We're going to get an Ilka-style Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver to hold us over until Gen 12 comes out. I hope they use Pokemon Works wisely, and I hope they use Pokemon Works to their advantage to try to, not have as many gap years as we've had over the past handful of years. And I think that we're looking at a really more positive future for Pokemon, given what we're seeing right now with how Winds and Waves looks, and just in general, the trajectory of the franchise seems to be going nowhere but up. Anyways, let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you guys think about the roadmap for Pokemon past Winds and Waves? Do you think it's going to shift drastically, given that Winds and Waves got delayed from 2026 to 2027? Or do you think it's going to be rather similar, and it's just going to be that everything gets shifted back by a year? Let me know down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from Trainer DC. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.